So first of all, I want to thank David and Stephen for their very generous offer to do this, and Michael too, of course, for this very generous offer to do this webinar that will undoubtedly be very helpful for many Argentine students that are interested in studying in the United States. And the proposal has been extremely successful because we got almost 300 persons that registered. So we are very happy, and that's why we want to record it, because we may have to do it again. So thank you so much. And I want to take this opportunity to speak briefly about Fulbright, and then I'll let you do the webinar. So Fulbright, as you all probably know, is a program of the American government, of the United States government, that started in 1946. We are celebrating the 75th anniversary this year. So we are very happy, and I'm very proud to be part of this program and of this history. So the program was started after the Second World War, following the initiative of Senator Fulbright, who was very concerned with all the horrible things that had happened during the war, and wanted to find a way to so that people from different countries would learn to know each other, to understand different cultures, to see the world through the eyes of others, and to be more understanding, and in that way try to avoid future wars. So he thought the best way to do this would be through educational and cultural exchanges, and of students and teachers that could go and live in another country for at least a year to mix with the population in the other country and learn about them, and to see, as I said, the world through their eyes. The program started. It has been generously supported by both parties for 75 years, so this is fantastic. It's very popular. The scholarships are very competitive. It has awarded 400,000 scholarships since it began. It is active in 160 countries. In Argentina, it started in 1956, so we are also celebrating an anniversary now. And we have awarded approximately 10,000 grants, 2/3 to Argentines and 1/3 to Americans. And we give scholarships for masters, to do masters in the United States, to do research programs, masters or PhDs, research programs, also for English teachers to go to the United States and teach for a year, and at the same time take courses. And we also bring American students, graduate students, professors, and young English teachers to spend a year in Argentina doing research or helping teach English, helping train the future teachers of English. So it's, as I said, it's an amazing program, very successful, and we are very happy to associate with the University of North Carolina to help people to apply to this program and to apply to the university, North Carolina State. Okay, so Steve and David, thank you again, and I'll let you introduce yourselves and open the real thing.
All right, well, Norma, Laura, thank you both so much. We are really excited to be here with all of you guys today. David and I have been doing this for a really long time, and we both have kind of our unique areas of kind of work with Fulbright and with graduate students. So I'll let David actually start and introduce himself, and then I'll introduce myself, and we will jump right into this presentation.
Sure. Oh, thanks, Stephen. And again, thank you very much for the opportunity to do this. We really appreciate it. My name is Dave Schaefer. I'm Assistant Dean in the Graduate School at North Carolina State University. I have a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's degree in political science, and a PhD in public administration. So my area is in the social sciences. And I've been here at NC State now for 31 years. So hopefully we can hope to give you some good advice on how to apply for graduate school and make your application competitive. So again, thank you.
All right. And I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. So let's see if this actually works. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So is it my PowerPoint presentation, Dave? I can't actually see it.
Yep.
Fabulous.
Yep,
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, everyone, my name, as we said earlier, my name is Stephen Bergman. I work in the Office of Global Engagement here at NC State, and my area of expertise is working with all of our incoming sponsored students. So that includes all of our incoming Fulbright students and scholars. I meet you when you arrive here on campus on day one. I work with you throughout your program, either master's, PhD, or if you're here for research. I am part of your team from the day that you arrive to the day that you depart, and oftentimes long after you depart, because I just love our Fulbright scholars and students. I live vicariously through all of the amazing research that you guys do and amazing things you do. So if you come to NC State, you'll have somebody like me. There are people like me at all of these various universities across the United States. So, I think you have a great support network right now as you are in the application process, and you'll have a great support network upon your arrival. So one of the things that we often get asked is kind of, how can we help students stand out during the application process? You don't have the same knowledge as somebody who's grown up in the United States. You don't understand the educational system, structure, and the expectations that a lot of American students do, just because the American students live in that environment all the time. And so one of the things we try to help is kind of help you guys think about yourselves and the programs and ways that you can make yourselves stand out. So let me get my slide going here. So one of the first things that I encourage students to start doing is know what you want, and not just, I want a great job with a great salary, but things that you want personally and professionally, because that will help you make decisions about graduate programs. And so before you even start applying, I want you to think about, why do you think this school or that school is the best fit for you? What criteria are you using to reach that conclusion? What if you don't get into the top school that you've chosen? What happens if you get multiple financial aid offers from different schools, and they have very different things that you want? One may have a great research program. One may have a great history of putting people into high-paying jobs. One may be the highest ranked. So how do you think about that? How are you going to pay for school if you don't get a scholarship, or if you don't get the amount of scholarship that you want? How can you increase your chances of getting aid and getting admitted? And those are two really big ones. And then after you applying, what if you don't like your advisor? Or what if you get into a program where you don't feel it's a good fit? What is success? These are some really important things. And what's going to want to highlight at the very bottom, there is no right answer to any of these questions. All of these are going to be determined by you and your individual circumstances and your own experiences. So don't feel that you have to have a perfect answer for each and every one of these. When thinking about programs, one thing that we encourage students to do is think long-term. What do you want to be doing in 10 to 20 years? And is this program, this graduate program, equipped to help you get there? And why is it equipped to help you get there? How can it make you more successful? Think about the type of graduate program you want. We talk about advisor mentor. Some advisors and mentors are very, very supportive and very hands-on. Others are very hands-off. One of my professors earlier today just told me in some cases you have to carry the iron rod and be ready to kind of hit knuckles and say, keep moving, you got to keep moving when doing a dissertation. So think about what you're trying to achieve and who you want to help you, who want to help you achieve your goals. And then what kind of opportunities for things like professional development or research do you have in your program? So think about that. And then what are some of the pros and cons of some of the different schools you're looking at? National ranking is really important, but it is just one data point that you should be looking at as you start to think about schools that are good fits for you. Some other things that we always tell students to think about: how long does it take you to earn your degree? At some schools, if you're trying to do a master's, you can do it in 12 months or 18 months. Others, it takes a full 2 years. Are you trying to be quicker or slower? Are you worried about that degree ranking or that program ranking? Is ranking really, really important to you? What kind of research facilities are you going to have access to? Laboratory space, library space, or special collections that you may be interested in. Thinking about some of this can really help you make those decisions before you even start applying to school. Things like internships and job opportunities. It takes a lot of work, but doing the research now will make you more successful before you even start applying to school. So we're going to start with that here, and Dave is going to move into talking about one of the best and sometimes most dreaded parts of applying to grad school, the application itself.
Okay. Well, thanks, Steve. Okay. So there are a number of different components of the application. We can go to the next slide. Yeah. There's the application form, and pretty much all universities are going to have that. There's usually one online application form, and I'll explain how that's reviewed in a second. But there's going to be one online application, and you're going to need to pay an application fee. At NC State, it's $85. Other universities, it's $100. It just depends on the university. But the one form is basically to put in information about yourself, name, address, general demographic information. You're also going to, and by the way, I'm going to talk about a lot of this, in more detail in a second. I'm just going to give a summary right now. But transcripts, we need all of your academic transcripts. So that would include anything from when you got your bachelor's degree. If you have a master's degree, we'll need those transcripts. If you did a summer class at another university, we'll need those transcripts as well. And so what we're looking for in those transcripts, is a minimum of a 3.0 GPA, okay? Although many departments are going to have, a higher GPA requirements. And what Steve will talk about later, lots of other criteria we use besides the GPA in order to get into graduate school. There are lots of students that get in with lower than a 3.0 GPA if they have lots of research experience, for example. We're going to look at your coursework. Is it the right coursework? So if you're interested in pursuing a degree in sociology, do you have social science courses? Okay. We're going to look at any kind of trends in your transcript. So when you first started school, were you not doing so well? And then all of a sudden you got better and better and better. We're going to look for any kind of trends like that. Many students don't do so well in their first year, and they improve after that. If you have like 1 year you didn't do so well and all the other years you did excellent, we're going to notice that as well. And we're also, of course, going to look at the GPA in your major versus the your overall GPA. So in a nutshell, what we do is we look at the entire transcript. We don't just look at the overall, number, the total GPA. So I'm going to go over some of the following in more detail. I'm going to talk about standardized test scores in just a little bit, and the TOEFL, the IELTS, and the test of English language. I'll talk about that last probably. Letters of reference. I'll talk about letters of reference. I'll talk about the statement of purpose. But the key here is what's in red. There's a huge difference between applying to get your bachelor's degree and applying to graduate school, okay? When you submit your application to get your bachelor's degree, like in graduate school, there's one application. The application goes to undergraduate admissions. They make the decision on your application. Done, okay? You're either admitted or you're not. In graduate school, there's one application, okay? And that application goes to my office. I'm assistant dean in the graduate school. But then we forward that information out to the departments. And it's really the faculty that convene faculty committees who review your applications and ultimately make those recommendations as to whether or not to admit you, okay? So it's a centralized application process, but an extremely decentralized decision-making process on how we decide whether or not you're going to be admitted or not. And so the bottom line here is that your audience, when you're submitting your application, will be the faculty in your department, okay? So we'll go to the next slide, please. So, there are a few things that you need to keep in mind when you're applying and some very important components of your application. First of all, you have to have outstanding, glowing, excellent, beautiful letters of reference, okay? They have to be really good. They have to tell basically these should come from faculty who know your work well and who can vouch for your work, and to vouch to other faculty to say, look, yeah, this person, I would recommend this person for the graduate program. They're a good match with your program. They're interested in the research that you're doing. They're going to be successful in the program, and they're vouching to other colleagues that you're going to be a good investment. Okay. So choose those people who are writing your letters well. I mean, they should be faculty who know your work well. If you've done summer research someplace, if you've done a very intensive 40-hour a week summer research experience, if you're interested in a research-based program, that person might be the one who would write your letter of reference. That would be okay. If you're applying to, the MBA program or to a professional degree program, or, a program where you're, get your work experience or your internships are going to be in the same area that you're applying to, then the person, your supervisor for that relevant internship would be a good reference writer. But generally, as faculty who know your work well, when you're, get to know your instructors, express an interest in class, ask questions, volunteer to do research projects. When I was an undergraduate at UNC Chapel Hill, I walked up to a professor and I said, hey, I'm really interested in your work. Do you mind if I help you out, on your project? Of course, he really didn't need my help, but he said yes. He let me help him out. And I ended up getting a really good letter out of that, a letter of reference, and also some research experience out of that. So be proactive, go up to your faculty and simply volunteer. You have nothing to lose by doing that. When you're asking for letters, you want to ask faculty if they can write you a strong letter of reference. Okay. Don't just ask for a letter of reference. They're going to give it to you. Okay. But ask for a strong letter. I've seen lots of letters that recommend the student not necessarily get into graduate school, or they're one paragraph long that clearly indicate the faculty member does not know the student. Okay, that you might have been one in a very large lecture class. So ask if they can write you a strong letter, very important. Give them plenty of time. Give them your resume, your CV, which is a summary of all of your accomplishments, your statement of interest. Give them all the ammunition they need to write that strong letter for you. And also, by all means, meet with them as well. Set up a meeting with them and talk to them about your interests. And if you're applying to multiple universities, as you all should be applying to multiple universities, let them know where you're applying so that they can, your application should be tailored to the individual university, but there's going to be a lot of things they can use, that are the same for each university. So it would save them some time if you told them which universities you're applying to so they can reuse some of that material. Okay, so we'll move on to the statement of purpose, I think. And really the statement of purpose is to gather qualitative information about you, okay? And your overall application, by the way, and your statement of purpose should demonstrate this, is one, your potential to succeed in graduate school, okay? So all of your qualifications, your academic credentials, why you're going to be successful in the graduate program. Two, and very, very importantly, and equally important, this is where a lot of students don't do so well, is your fit with the graduate program. So why are you applying to the Department of Chemical Engineering at NC State? We should be doing the research you're interested in doing. Talk about the research we're doing and how that aligns with your interests. Talk about how there are a number of different faculty in the department with whom you're interested in working and why. You need to be a good match with the department. Okay. So for example, if you're applying to NC State University and you're applying in let's just say psychology, right? And you're very interested in clinical psychology, and you write a nice statement of purpose, about clinical psychology, and you have a great application, perfect GREs, perfect GPA, we will definitely reject your application. There is no way we will accept your application. We do not have clinical psychology. We have a lot of other psychologies, just not clinical. And that's something that seems obvious, but it's a mistake that I made when I was applying to graduate school. So hopefully you'll avoid that mistake. I wasted a lot of application fees applying for another area of public administration where a lot of universities didn't have it, right? So basically demonstrate your match with the program. Talk about, you need to be passionate about the discipline. Talk about, tell a brief story about yourself, very brief, but how did you get interested in, in a particular area? Why are you interested in this particular research area? Why are you interested in a particular industry or profession? What led you to that? And again, why are you applying to the program, and be specific? One caution here, though, is you want to be specific, but not too specific. Okay. And the reason why I want to say that is kind of confusing, but talk about, how you're interested in the research area. Give examples of faculty, with whom you're interested in working. But what you don't want to do, unless you're invited to do this, is to say, I'm applying to the Department of, Horticultural Science at North Carolina State University because I want to work with Dr. X. And this is the person I want to work with. This is the person, he is the reason why I want to apply to NC State University. It might be you're a great student, but Dr. X might already have 10 other students in his or her lab, right? And so that they might just not have room for you in that lab. They might just not have space for you. So give some examples of faculty. Don't put all of your, don't put everything into, don't hinge everything on one faculty member, because they might not have space for you in their lab. Okay. Talk about your relevant experiences, your accomplishments. Now, in your CV or your resume, I mean, you're going to be outlining all of your, your history of all of your accomplishments. And maybe in a CV, you'll have a summary of what you did in a particular, research project that you worked on, or in a particular internship that you did. If you're interested in a professional degree program. In the statement of purpose, you don't want to just simply repeat what's on your resume, though, okay, or your CV. You don't want to do that. You want to include it, but you want to go a step further, that you did this particular, internship, and during this internship, the internship gave you these X, Y, and Z, these skills that will help you to be successful in graduate school. So what skills did all of your experiences give you, and why will that help you to be successful in graduate school? Some other things we look at, and I know we have limited time, but I could talk, we'll answer questions soon, but
yeah, we can answer questions at the
really
end.
Quick things. Can you communicate effectively? Make things easy to read. By all means, what you want to do is to get someone else to review your statement of purpose as well. Get a faculty member, get a friend, get anyone else. Usually in my office, I write a lot of things. I show it to someone else, and generally they're going to catch a lot of mistakes that I missed because I'm looking at my stuff over and over again. So we can go to standardized tests here, and I'll talk very briefly about these, and I can answer any questions about the other materials as well, and so can Steve too. Yeah. Standardized test scores, it's one part of your application. Okay, it's not everything. It's one part of your application. Many departments at NC State, it's not a university requirement, but it's almost always, very often, a departmental requirement. So it's up to them as to whether or not they want to require it and how they want to weigh it. The key here on this slide, really, all of you are going to be taking, many of you are going to be taking the standardized tests, is that study for the GRE. Just like any other exam, study for it. If you can, take a review class or go to gre.org, look at their materials, but just study for it. It's like any other exam. Take it from me. Again, another thing that I didn't do, I didn't study for it. I did not do well on it. Okay. Some of the things that are in here are mistakes that, might have made. And so we wanted to make sure that you didn't make those mistakes. So study for the GRE. At NC State, many other universities, probably most other universities, we're going to be expecting you to take some exams to test your English language skills. These certainly do not reflect at all on your academic ability. Doesn't reflect one little bit. All they do is to determine how well you can communicate in English. And so we have the TOEFL. I think the cutoff is 80, and correct me if I'm wrong on these, Steve, but the IELTS 6.5, and we're now accepting Duolingo, and I believe the cutoff is 110. And so again, you're going to be required to take those as well.
Yep.
And I will be quiet and let Steve continue.
See if I can move on here. So let me. Okay. So one of the things that we really, really want you guys to do with all of this, and talking kind of beyond standardized tests, and when Dave really talked about it in your statement of purpose, your CV or your resume, and in those letters of recommendations, are really try to find ways to help you stand out, and to make you the best possible version of yourself in a handful of pieces of paper as you can, to make yourself the most likely and most qualified applicant that you can be. And so one thing that we encourage you guys to do is really think about offering something unique. What is something unique about you that you can bring to this program, that you can bring to this department? Nearly everybody, not everybody, but nearly everybody who applies to graduate school will meet the minimum requirements for admission. So knowing that, how do you go from being just a person in the crowd to being a person in the crowd plus something else? So stand out. Talk about the things that make you unique. Talk about the things that make you special. If you are really passionate about your field, talk about why. Like Dave said, you can work a story into your statement of purpose. Talk about some critical or defining experience that you've had, be it academic or professional or an internship, and how that impacted you and made you passionate about your field. And you can use that whole application to really share the things that you can bring, whether that is a really strong work ethic, or whether that is years of experience in the field, years of undergraduate and previous graduate research in the field. So just think about some ways that you can make yourself pop and make that application really jump out, kind of jump off the page. Some ways that we think you can do that, and some ways that have been effective in the past. And I'm in my second master's right now, and I know that some of this helped me. And I say this to you guys, knowing that I went through this whole process last year myself. If you have research experience, talk about it. If you have left higher education and you've gone into a professional setting, and that professional work is related to the degree that you are pursuing, make sure you talk about that. Tie the two together. If the work is helping prepare you for this master's or PhD, sometimes you have to spell that out and say, this work helped me and this is why it has prepared me for graduate school. If you've ever gone to a conference and given a presentation, talk about that experience. Talk about how you tie your profession or your conference presentation to your program. Dave, I'm going to use your line here. If you are 10 of 10 on a list of authors on a publication, it doesn't matter. You are published, and that is something that is worthy of being recognized and something that you should be sure to highlight. You can be that last author, but it does not matter. You are one of the authors of that work, and make sure that you claim that as something that can help you stand out on that application. If you've ever received any honors, or you've been in part of an honor society, or if you've received rewards or awards from your department for outstanding undergraduate research, or from the college for your research, make sure you highlight that. Talk about that. Talk about the work that went into earning that award. If you've done something like a short-term academic program or a graduate certificate, and now you're thinking of turning that into a full master's program or into a PhD, make sure you highlight that. Business successes and failures, and I put "and failures" in there because you learn a lot through failure. We all talk about being successful, and we all talk about how important it is to do things right. Sometimes your greatest learning experiences come from the times where you failed, and you can talk about what you've learned, and you can talk about how that's made you a better student or a better colleague. So don't be afraid to highlight those things where you failed too, because those can be great learning experiences. So these are just some of the things that we think can help you stand out and can help make you a better applicant. And hopefully these can kind of jog your memory and get you thinking about other ways beyond this list that you can make yourself stand out as a strong applicant for graduate school too. Some other ones, we encourage you again to do your research. Learn as much as you can about the program, the department, the curriculum, the professors in that department. The more knowledge that you have about those schools and about the programs that they offer and how that relates to your work, that will make you a better applicant. if you can say, like Dave said, if you're applying to clinical psychology here at NC State, you're not going to get in. You will, because we don't have clinical psychology. So if you do your research beforehand, you can avoid some of those mistakes. Always, if you can, apply early. Most programs have 2 deadlines. They have a funding deadline, and then they have a regular admission deadline. The funding deadline is if you wish to be considered for financial aid, like teaching assistantships or research assistantships. So think about that. Make sure that you are checking the websites for all of your universities to make sure you know when those deadlines are. I encourage 4 to 5 students apply to 4 to 5 academic programs across 4 to 5 different universities. That changes depending on who you talk to. Some say as few as 2 or 3. Others, I have a couple of graduate students. One of them is a Fulbrighter who applied to 10 for her PhD. So very, very thorough. And that's a lot of money spent on applications. But she was insistent. She wanted to give herself the broadest possible opportunity. So, find your own balance that you think that you're comfortable with. We encourage you to absolutely seek advice from your current faculty members, from any of your former classmates who've gone abroad, any alumni from the school that you are applying to, any international student clubs, any groups of faculty or current students. Most departments will make at least 1 or 2 graduate students available so that students can ask questions. So if you are thinking, I want to go to NC State for history, some of my classmates in the history program will be available to answer questions if you reach out to the department. Reach out to some of the faculty. And this is a delicate balance, and Dave can talk more about kind of how to walk that line than I can. But there's a balance between reaching out to professors and asking questions and making yourself known, and in some cases going too far. If you have questions about things like that, I would encourage you to reach out to folks like me or to Dave and ask questions. How do I talk to a professor in my department? How can I talk about our shared research interests without coming across as too demanding? So, don't be afraid to reach out to people like us too. We are here on these campuses to help you when you're getting ready to apply. The biggest thing on this list, I think, is to make yourself liked by the people who are going to be reviewing your application. If they know who you are, when your application comes across their desk, they're like, oh, it's Norma. I know who that is because we've spoken, we've talked, we have a shared interest in this. Let me tell my colleagues this person I think is a good fit for us. And that's the kind of rapport that you want to have with somebody in your department. So I know that it can be kind of scary to reach out into the abyss and say, Dr. So-and-so, we have a shared interest and I want to learn more about your research. But it can be very rewarding in the end. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dave and let him talk about one of the most exciting parts, which is funding.
People usually like this topic here. Okay. So there are several different types of funding to support your graduate education. Okay. And for the funding available through NC State University, there's not really a separate application for these. As I mentioned before, when you submit your application, the information goes to the faculty in the departments, and they're going to be making the funding decisions at the same time they're deciding on admissions. There are several different types of funding. There are teaching assistantships and research assistantships, and these are compensation for work. There's service awards where you work a certain number of hours per week for a faculty member in your department, and you get paid for that service. Okay. With teaching assistantships and research assistantships, as the names kind of denote, teaching-related duties versus research-related duties, a research assistantship is usually funded through a faculty member who has a research grant, and he or she will have a budget item on that grant for a student, for an undergraduate student, a graduate student, maybe a postdoctoral associate, and then you'll be working on that research project with that faculty member, which is why you got to choose the faculty, with whom you're interested in working quite well, because you'll be working on those research projects with them when you're pursuing a research-based degree program like a PhD or a Master's of Arts or Master of Sciences. Okay, so research assistantships, teaching related duties, you're going to get a stipend, and the stipend is your take-home pay. Okay. And that's going to vary from department to department, okay? Can range anywhere from $8,000 to $30,000, maybe even higher than that. It just totally depends on the department, and it's a legitimate question to ask when you're shopping around for a graduate program, okay, as to what is the average stipend. At North Carolina State University, other universities too, and you want to ask this question, you will get your tuition and your health insurance covered as well if you get a teaching assistantship or a research assistantship, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. Ask when you're making decisions on universities, ask, okay, so what's the average stipend level? And what kind of benefits does it come with? Does it come with tuition? Does it come with health insurance? Okay. Something, and I'm going to skip to the bottom a little bit. What I didn't say is I didn't mention fees, did I? Okay. So I didn't say anything about fees. Usually fees are not covered. Okay. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. That's a question to ask. Okay. Everyone on a TA or an RA, teaching assistantship or research assistantship, will get their tuition and health insurance covered, but not everyone will get their fees covered, okay? That just depends on the faculty member, and generally they're not covered, okay? And those can be about $1,500 per semester. And if you're in engineering, and other engineering schools do this too, there's like an extra, fee for engineering schools. So at least ask the question. It might be they say yes, they can cover it. It might be they say no, and then at the outset that that's something you need to take out of pocket. So just be sure to ask that question, okay? What happens after the first year, okay? You get a great offer from NC State University, a $30,000, assistantship in the first year. Okay, great. What happens after the first year? What about the third year? Is this a multi-year offer? And generally speaking, there will be multi-years offers. I mean, they're not going to cut you off after the first year. Don't ever assume anything, though. Make sure you talk to them about that, get it in writing. You don't want to be caught off guard in your second or third year when they say, well, you know what, you really need to find your own funding. You don't want to be so again, generally speaking, you're going to get that funding. And by the way, if you're pursuing a PhD, you should expect to get funding, okay? You should expect to get a teaching assistantship or a research assistantship. If you're pursuing a master's degree, less so, okay? You might or might not get funding. But if you're pursuing a PhD, you should be getting funding. And I can talk more about that if you have questions on that. Are the fees covered? If you're in a master's program, or if you're in a program where there's a master's and a PhD, when you're shopping around for a school, ask how they make those decisions. Ask what I just said, do they emphasize PhD more than masters when they're making funding decisions? Ask those questions, okay? And again, be sure to ask the stipend level, and be sure to ask about those fees, okay? So TAs, teaching assistantships, research assistantships, service awards. Then there are fellowships. And a fellowship is basically the same thing as a scholarship. They're usually called a scholarship at the undergraduate level, and at the graduate level, they're usually called a fellowship. But those are non-service awards. So it's not compensation for work. So you go to graduate school full time, and you get paid to go to graduate school full time. Okay. And very often these are going to be combined with teaching assistantships or research assistantships. So it might be at NC State, for example, during your first year, we have what are called provost fellowships. It's a 1-year fellowship, right, to help encourage you to attend NC State. And then you're also going to get a teaching assistantship or research assistantship for all of your subsequent years at NC State. So we start with a fellowship, non-service, right? And then we go to the teaching assistantships and the research assistantships later. And that depends on the department, but they're very often combined, okay? A fellowship is going to cover your monthly stipend. Again, that's your take-home pay, your tuition, your health insurance. Very often they will cover your fees. Again, sometimes they don't. It's a question to ask. Some general characteristics about fellowships, and these are very general. At NC State, you have to be enrolled full-time in order to get a teaching assistantship, a research assistantship, or a fellowship. Other universities, they might not have that rule. So do ask other universities, because I was giving a presentation at a conference with a colleague, And she, said, although NC State requires full-time enrollment, we actually don't. That was another university. So ask that question. Just be sure that you comply with the requirements. They range quite a range here, anywhere from 1 to 6 years in duration. I would say the average is about 3 years. They're going to be research specific or discipline specific, So some will be for any area of the social sciences. Some will be specifically for people in political science. Some will be for students working in the research area of organizational behavior within political science, within the social sciences. So it totally depends on the program, okay? 2 kinds of fellowships. There are institutionally awarded fellowships, and there are nationally competitive fellowships, which are externally awarded fellowships. Institutionally awarded, those are awarded from the university to you, from the college, from your department to you. And when you apply, you're going to be considered for those automatically. Okay. There are a number that our office, that I actually administer over in the graduate school, where departments and colleges will send the nominations to me, and then we'll make a decision, and then you'll get that award. But either way, you're working with your department, and there's not a separate application. Nationally competitive fellowships are programs for which you apply directly to an outside granting agency or foundation. Then if you get awarded the fellowship, you can take it to any university to which you've been admitted or are enrolled. Okay. So instead of being awarded from the university to you, it's awarded from that outside organization to you. Okay. The deadlines for institutionally awarded fellowships, same as the application deadlines. Okay. And as Steve mentioned, there are some departments that will have an earlier deadline if you're interested in funding. Okay. So just keep that in mind. But the deadlines are about the same. For the nationally competitive fellowships, they can range for 2022-23 anywhere from last October, to about March or April, but they start quite early. So when you're looking for fellowships, and that's a really good website to look at, by the way, for searching for fellowships at the last website there, whether you're interested in NC State University or not, there's some good search engines there. Start your search early for those fellowships. If you are a student at NC State University, we actually have a university fellowship office that helps both undergraduates and graduate students search for and apply for nationally competitive fellowships. I don't think I'm forgetting anything here, but usually there's some additional questions. So I'll leave it to Q&A.
Yeah, we can leave it for Q&A. So kind of wrapping up, just a couple of key things. Do your homework. Put in the work now to find the right schools, the right fit, the right programs for you. It will help you start to narrow down which places you want to be and why. And I didn't include this, or I think I included it very early on. Sometimes students think you're going to spend 2 to 4 years at your school. One of the things that a lot of students don't really think about until they show up is lifestyle and climate. If you don't want to live in the desert, maybe Arizona isn't the right place for you. If you don't want to experience minus 30 temperatures, Minnesota might not be the right place for you. If you'd like to try either of those, I would encourage you to apply to at least put a school in one of those locations on your list. But do your homework, and you'll find some of this stuff out as you're researching the schools. Study for those tests. Take them again if you need to. That essay, like the statement of purpose, it's really important. It is one of the kind of big documents that you will put together. It really is your explanation as to why you are passionate about this program and why you are a good fit. So write it, rewrite it, have a friend who's a native English speaker review it for you if you can. It will help make you a stronger applicant. I am a native English speaker, and I wrote it twice. My wife reviewed it and said, you need to make changes. You need to strengthen this part. So having a fresh set of eyes to review your documents can really help. Understand why you are applying to graduate school and why you are applying to each program that you are in the various graduate schools. It will help you write a stronger essay when you write that statement of purpose. Talk about your accomplishments. Do not hide your failures. They will be seen. If you have a grade that is an F or a semester of poor grades, talk about it. Address it head on. It's better that you explain that than to have somebody guess as to why you had bad grades here or some shortcoming in another place. So don't be afraid to talk about that stuff. You don't need to talk about it at length, but you should at least make sure you address it. And then don't delay. Do not delay. Again, if you can apply early, the earlier you can apply, the better opportunities you have for aid from the university. Understand what that aid is. And then the last thing and the most important thing is be yourself. You are the only version of you out there, and you bring unique, interesting, wonderful qualities to everything that you do. You will bring that to graduate school as well. So make sure that you just be yourself. And then just a little bit about NC State. I think we're ranked in the top 200 to top 300 programs in the world, depending on which ranking system you're looking at. Beyond this list, there are, I believe, 49 Fulbrighters on campus at this moment. I think that number's actually changed. I think I have 3 more as of this semester. We have a big active Fulbright community here on this campus that consists of master's students, PhD students, visiting scholars, some who are here as short as 3 months, some who are in their 5th year. It's an active, dynamic community. And that isn't just NC State. You'll find that at schools across the country. Our students, I work with my students to make sure that we take them out to the beach once a year in the fall. We try to go up to the mountains when we can, and they do a summer barbecue. They're a very active community as a whole, as a big group, and in their small individual regional communities, or however they choose to kind of split themselves. So, don't be afraid to leverage the Fulbright community and the Fulbright network you'll find absolutely wonderful people on campuses like this from all over the world. And then just information for Dave and for me, you can take down our email addresses. I encourage you to reach out, email me. I'm happy to answer questions, happy to be a resource. If you have a student, if you know any of our current Fulbrighters and you want to be put in touch with one of them for any reason, let me know. They tend to be very active as well, and they're a very giving, sharing group on this campus. So, with that, I can go ahead and stop sharing, and we can open ourselves up for questions. If that sounds good to everyone, don't be afraid to ask. And I'll put my email in the chat box as well, so you can copy it there.
There are some questions in the chat.
Okay.
If you want to look at them. And
sure.
I think the other way is raising your hand. I don't know how. Okay.
Yeah. Question about master's degrees. If applying for master's degrees, taken into account, or can it be counterproductive? Good question about previous master's degrees. I'm not aware of a previous master's or any previous master's work that would be counterproductive or that would in any way harm your application. If anything, my assumption would be as long as your grades are decent, it is a benefit. And if you can show that you have quality grades in a master's program elsewhere, it can lend and make you a stronger applicant, because your faculty will assume that you can do that quality of work and that rigor of work, you're capable of doing it. So I don't think that is a problem at all. Dave, any thoughts?
No, you covered it.
I'll let you answer this one, because it's
the next
about
one on
postdocs. Postdocs, please.
So the question is about applying to postdoctoral positions. Is it similar to the PhD applications? It's actually a little more difficult, a little more decentralized, actually, than applying for a PhD. I mean, when PhD, there's actually an application that you submit. Postdoc positions are very often found by, contacting faculty, with whom you're interested in working, or it might be that a faculty colleague of yours at your home institution knows of another faculty member doing the research you're interested in doing. Sometimes there's a centralized database at universities, maybe through human resources. Other times there's not. But it's really working, and talking to individual faculty. At North Carolina State University, we do have an Office of Postdoctoral Affairs that, you could contact them and they might have some leads for you. There's also a National Postdoctoral Association as well. And so you want to maybe work with them. But if you think that, masters and PhDs are the application process is decentralized, postdoc is even more decentralized. But very often in different disciplines, a postdoc is expected, so it's something to look into and talk to your advisor about.
Yeah. So I'll do the next two. So NC State does not have an LLM degree. We do not have a law school, so we don't offer that. There are some fabulous schools here in our area of the country that do, both Duke University. Dave, who are the other law schools in the area? I'm drawing a blank on.
North Carolina Central University, Duke.
There you go.
UNC Chapel Hill. I can't think of another one.
Yeah. So there are some great schools here, but beyond this region of North Carolina, there are hundreds of law schools across the country. And then the other question was, is housing included in financial aid? So graduate housing is different than undergraduate housing. Housing is not included. A stipend is provided to you, and that stipend will include money for your housing that you can put towards housing. But you do not come to university in the US, and usually you do not have housing provided on campus for you. A lot of our graduate students will look for off-campus housing units. So I think it's kind of a two-part question. So you will get financial aid that will cover some of your housing, but you will have to find that housing on your own and then budget for that housing accordingly. Any other thoughts there, Dave, or is that?
No, that's about it. Yeah, that would come when you're getting the teaching assistantship, research assistantship, or fellowship, your stipend, that would come out of your take-home pay is where the housing would come out of. Okay. And I think that Steve might have alluded to that, many graduate students do live off campus, and there are a lot of off-campus apartments around NC State, many other universities too, but that's just your preference as to what you'd like to do. Yeah.
And then Dave, you want to answer the next question? So the question is, do Fulbright scholarships make you more eligible for universities, or does it not affect the application process?
Well, in my opinion, my experiences, Fulbright, National Science Foundation fellowships, externally funded fellowships, support that you bring to the university, yes, it can have a positive impact on your application. Not only because of the funding, but it also shows that you're vetted. You're an excellent student. That organization has gone out of their way to, take a look at numerous applications and choose you from among many. So from that standpoint, I do think that having, externally funded, nationally competitive or internationally competitive fellowships does help. Yes.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Yeah, I'll echo that too and say when I see somebody has a Fulbright, they have a Fulbright offer for a master's or a PhD, I take notice because I'm like, okay, somebody has reviewed this person and said, they are amongst the best applicants in their country. And so when I see this person has a Fulbright, I'm like, oh, all right, let's dive more into this application and let's look further. So I think Fulbrights are one of those things, especially its knowledge, the knowledge of the Fulbright program amongst university faculty and staff is very high, and it's a very, very prestigious award. And so to receive one, people do sit up and they take notice of that. And then the next question.
Thank you. Wonderful words and very true.
I may be biased. Again, I love my Fulbrighters on this campus, so I could be biased. So the next question is about statement of purpose, and should you address the various universities in there? I say no. I think each statement of purpose should be specifically tailored to each school. So if you're applying to NC State and Virginia Tech and Michigan State as your three schools, you should have three separate statements of purpose, one for each school and one that is specifically tied to that school and why you are interested in that program, why you are interested in that research, and what you can bring to that school. Yes, it's more time. Yes, it is more rounds of revision and more people to review, but the end product is you have a statement of purpose that is dedicated to that school, and your faculty, when they're reviewing your application, will consider that. And then Dave, do you want to answer the next question about the 3,200 hours?
If I studied 3,200 hours career, is this equivalent to a bachelor's or master's degree? I'm interested in a PhD program. You have, when you're applying for a PhD, you have to have an earned bachelor's degree or an earned master's degree from your university is on your transcript, regardless of the amount of hours that you worked. If you worked 3,200 hours and you still didn't earn that bachelor's degree, you don't have, and you took like all non-credit courses, for example, that doesn't count. So you have to have a bachelor's degree and or a master's degree, and the number of hours doesn't necessarily equal a bachelor's or a master's degree.
Okay, and then do you want to go into the next one as well about about how strict the 3.0 GPA is in applications? Because I think that is a really good question.
Yeah. So the minimum GPA for the university for graduate school here is a 3.0 GPA. Okay. Many departments are going to have this very competitive. So it might be that their pool of applicants that the average is a 3.5, in which case, then you really need to have a 3.5. But I know a lot of students who have gotten into NC State University with lower than a 3.0 because, they did some of the things that Steve had mentioned earlier. You might have a lot of research experience. You might have a lot of work experience. You might be going into graduate school 25 years later and have a long career. And as an undergraduate 25 years ago, you didn't do so well. That doesn't matter, anymore. So I know that I used to run a very large undergraduate research program here at NC State, and I would have a number of students there with less than a 3.0 GPA going into graduate school, but they were working with the faculty here at NC State over the summer as undergraduates. The faculty got a chance to know them, and they got into NC State because of that, because they got the research experience. The faculty knew that they were great in the lab. So I guess the short answer is that just because you have less than a 3.0 does not mean that you cannot apply. In addition, there's also provisional admission as well, where you get admitted. You can't get any funding, but you get admitted after a semester. The provisions go away, and it's just a way to test to see whether or not you can be successful in the graduate school. But that research experience, the work experience, all of those other things are more important than that GPA. So don't let it discourage you from talking to the faculty, if you have less than a 3.0 GPA. That's the long-winded answer to your question.
Yeah. And then there was a more recent question that came in about applying to the public health program and applying through, I think it's SOPAS. I'm not familiar enough with how that works. There are some programs, they're few and far between, where you will apply through a central program. Those are things like, I think, law schools, med schools, maybe public health is the same. So it is a little different. This is, generally speaking, the what Dave and I have been speaking about is how you will apply. There are a few unique programs and degrees where that is not necessarily the case. Dave, I'm not familiar with the public health one enough to say. Are you?
No.
Okay.
I don't think there's a. I'm not.
If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to ask them now. I'm happy to stay on and answer questions if you have them. And I think I shared my email. Please feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to be a resource from the university side. You have Norma and Laura here, and they will help you with anything that they can with Fulbright related things. And if you just need somebody to commiserate, like I said, I went through this just last year myself. I know how difficult it is to write a statement of purpose, and I can say, oh yeah, I remember, and these are things that I took into consideration. So don't be afraid to reach out if you have questions, and we'll happily help. I
put my email in there too, and feel free to contact me if you'd like to as well. I can even set up one-on-one Zoom conversations with you if you want.
Yeah, same.
And same here. Any questions about Fulbright, you can find answers in our webpage, in our social media, and even in the office. We are actually in the office since a month ago.
Yeah. Thank you all. Truly, thank you. It's always a pleasure to chat, and it's always a pleasure to see new faces and new people who are energetic about learning and energetic about going out and doing the great, wonderful things that we all need in this world. So thank you all.
And thank you. It was very, very informative and very, very useful. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Norma, I will try to stop the recording and see if I can share this with you guys. I don't know where it'll go or how I'll send it to you. It may have to be like a Dropbox or something, but I'll try to find a way to do that.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care. Have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, and hope to hear from you guys soon.
Have a good evening.
You do too.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.